Fort Wayne's Office of Housing and Neighborhood Services, and I'm here with Cameo, my co-pilot for this, and we are ready to start the technical assistance that's associated with the city's second allocation of ESG COVID response funds, or CV funds. So let's bring up this PowerPoint here that we shared the link to everyone. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Again, my name is Jim Atz. Right there is my contact information. Cameo is with me. I'm sure most of you probably have worked with us in the past. And there is the program email. So that's going to be, that email address is important because over the next week, we're going to accept any and all questions that you guys have regarding this funding opportunity. So from now till the end of the day Friday, we're going to accept questions through this email address, and then we will publish a response to these frequently asked questions on Tuesday, September 22nd. So and that'll be on our website, is where we'll put those right next to where the application itself is at. So remember that email address for all questions, and we are open to all questions between now and the end of day on Friday. So the objectives for today is to provide an understanding of the Emergency Solutions Grant. And here are some of the areas: definitions, coordinated entry, eligible uses, which is going to be a significant amount of slides. We're opening up lots and lots and lots of eligible areas that will fund with this money. Normally, our ESG allocations are very small compared to what we have now. So normally we don't have the opportunity to fund some of the areas that we are currently open for funding. So lots of eligible uses that we're going to go through today. And ESG coronavirus aid, there's some differences between this ESG money and our normal, and we'll hit some of the highlights.
The city's website.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that? Okay, let's go to the next slide. What is the Emergency Solutions Grant Program? Okay, the Emergency Solutions Grant, we like to call it ESG, program is designed as the first step in the continuum of assistance to prevent homelessness and to enable the homeless population to move steadily toward independent living. So this funding is CV funding, that the CARES Act funding, which these funds are special because they're to be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus pandemic. But we're all well aware that the homeless population and the potentially homeless population are very susceptible to all of the elements that this pandemic are presenting. So it's not much of a stretch to present a funding request to us and to mention how it is in response to the current pandemic, because we know that this pandemic is having a strain on all of the community's resources. So next slide, please. So this is the money that we received. So the city was fortunate enough to receive 2 rounds of ESG COVID money. So the round 1 allocation was almost $600,000, and the round 2 allocation was $1.1 million. So as the application says, there is no minimum and no maximum funding request that you can include in your program. No minimum, no maximum. Obviously, common sense tells us you can't submit an application for $2 million. So, but there's still a big field to play here. Some of this money the city has already allocated towards activities, and we have somewhere on our website that shows you all those activities, but there's still lots and lots of funding for creative solutions to the pandemic and its impact on the homeless population and providers such as yourselves. Next slide, please. The ESG application. So unlike the last NOFA that we only gave you like 2 weeks, I think, to complete, this one we've given you guys plenty of time. So we released it on September 1st, and the due date is going to be on September 30th by 5 p.m. So like I said, we are going to accept questions until the end of the day on the 18th, and we're going to release answers to those questions on the 22nd, and we'll release those on our website. And then we'll release funding award information in October, and we'll do the standard TA session about contracts and documentation for reimbursement and all those things. So you guys are set up for success. But the important date is September 30th, 5 p.m. The applications need to be to us, and I think the application itself mentions that you can submit those. You can email those to ohns@cityoffortwayne.org, or you can drop paper copies off at our office, however you prefer. Those are 2 ways to submit those. Okay, ESG eligible uses. Here are the 4 categories of uses that we have: street outreach, emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing. So these are the 4 main categories, and now we're going to dive into eligible costs within these categories, and there's lots of them. I'm not going to cover all of them, but please look through. There are lots and lots of eligible activities we can fund here.
I have the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the PowerPoint is out on the website there. We're hoping that that'll help, because there are lots of items on there to look at.
I went to the website. I got the email from Daniel.
Okay.
I saw all the technical. Okay.
Did you click that?
No, I didn't have that email.
So that's on the web. If you go to the email and then you click on that, it will take you here.
Go back.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, were you able to find that?
I guess so.
Are you it?
All right, let's dive into street outreach. So street outreach. So a budget category within street outreach could be engagement. So the eligible activity is street outreach. The budget category would be engagement. And you can see here are a whole host of potential funding items within this engagement budget category. Initial assessments, providing crisis counseling, addressing urgent physical needs, blankets, clothes, toiletries, connecting and providing information and referrals to programs targeted to homeless people. So the street outreach section of this, you're going to see that normally we don't dive into funding these programs, but you're going to see that we have lots of eligible costs here, because we're really excited and hoping that someone will submit an application for street outreach. The next eligible category for street outreach is case management. This is assessing housing and service needs, initial evaluations, counselings, referrals, connecting these folks with other benefits, monitoring their progress, developing housing and service plans, the stability. Case management out as a function of a street outreach program is very important. And here are the categories that definitely activities that we could fund under case management within a street outreach program. Emergency health services. Again, this is not an area we've ever had a funding availability for. So we're excited to see that we could fund licensed medical professionals to assist with individuals who need being contacted, not at a out in the homelessness setting, providing medicine and follow-up services, assisting participants to understand their health needs. And here is this is a category: emergency health services. Emergency mental health services, again, very important category here that we're excited to be able to put some funding towards. Crisis interventions. Again, here's explanation about and the use of management of medications. So these are some great activities that we can fund in a street outreach program under the budget category emergency medical or mental health services. Transportation. Transportation of unsheltered people to emergency shelters, transportation of participants on public transit, mileage for staff to visit to get to where these folks are staying. There's even a line item here of purchasing, leasing a vehicle for staff use and conducting outreach activities. We have opened up lots and lots of street outreach funding opportunities here because we're definitely excited about and hoping that someone or some entity or multiple entities will work on a street outreach program and submit a funding application to us. Okay, let's move on to the next category here. Are there any questions? It's a small group, so how many folks do we have on the line here? We got 4 people on the line. We have a very small group, so if anyone, Sarah, no need to apologize. If anyone has any questions, come unmuted, ask away. Let's move on to emergency shelter. Again, another area that we don't do a lot of funding in, but with the current health crisis underway, we know that emergency shelters are strained for resources. Eligible activity, emergency shelter, essential services. Budget category under this is case management. Here are a whole list of eligible costs under this activity: ongoing risk assessment, information and referrals to other providers, monitoring, obtaining federal, state, and local benefits for the folks you're assisting, counseling, evaluation, using the central coordinated assessment system. All these things are eligible costs for case management associated with emergency shelter, essential services. Next slide, please. How about this? Emergency shelter, essential services, child care costs, meals, snacks, costs of development activities. This looks like for children under 13 or children with disabilities under 18. And so an area we've never funded before, but we are excited to offer this as an eligible activity that we'll consider funding for. Education education when necessary to obtain maintain housing, so screenings and testing, group instruction, tutoring, providing books and supplies and instructional materials, counseling, referral to community resources. So this is again another category of eligible expenses in this NOFA. Employment and training, classroom, online, or computer instruction, on-the-job instruction, assistance in securing employment screening, assessment, or testing, books and instructional materials, counseling or job coaching, special training and tutoring, including literacy training. There are lots of possible courses out there that maybe folks could get connected with that you guys can assist them with, and there is funding available to assist these folks. Next slide, please. Outpatient health services, assessing and developing treatment plans, assisting in understanding health needs, medical treatment, medication and follow-up, preventive non-cosmetic dental care. So all these things come with the caveat of available to the extent that is not available within the community. There's probably a good case to be made that maybe there's overload at the Matthew 25, or there's overload with your current partners that you have, and that you need additional outpatient health services. So we can see that there's a case being made for lots of these things that normally would not be, but because of the pandemic, we're at a shortage of these services. Emergency shelter, essential services, legal services. So it looks like there's some areas here that a case could be made for a budget to include some legal services for these kinds of activities. Life skills training. budgeting resources, managing money, managing a household, resolving conflict, shopping for food and needed items. So here's another area that maybe that some programming really go a long way with your current programming to help folks and move them along this path of self-sufficiency with these areas. So I told you there were a lot of new funding areas here. We're going to area emergency shelter, essential services, mental health services. So you could submit to us a request for funding to have a licensed medical professional provide your clients at emergency shelters with these following services: crisis interventions, the prescription of medications, the explanation of and the use of management of medications. So there are lots of areas here that we're entertaining funding requests for. Substance abuse treatments. Again, here's if there's a need for your facility to have a licensed professional work with folks in your emergency shelters on these particular areas here, develop a funding, put it in your application and submit it to us. Transportation services. We know that this is definitely an area where we're always hearing that our partners need more transportation assistance with their clientele. So here is another area. Let's see here: services for special populations, homeless youth, victims of domestic violence, people living with AIDS. We are open to funding requests for services that operate in an emergency shelter for special populations. Okay, so out of operations and into renovation. So ineligible use is ESG eligible use emergency shelter, rehab and renovations. Okay, so this one is a lot more intensive than managed programs are intensive as well, but the front end, making sure that the project is eligible, is a little more intensive on the rehab renovations. So, but here it is: we will fund renovations or conversions of a building into an emergency shelter. So renovations to an existing or conversion of a existing building to a shelter. We will fund labor, materials, tools, and other costs associated with the renovation. Now, we can't fund new construction, and if anyone's interested in doing this, renovations to their existing shelter, you may come to us with a proposal saying we are interested in a new roof. Okay, so in addition to that new roof, HUD has a whole list of here are the other standards that building will be held to, and these standards are very manageable: proper lighting, proper security, proper lack of unhealthy conditions. So when we're assisting applicants with this particular item, that could be a new roof, it could be a new furnace, it could be remodeling of a kitchen, it could be lots and lots of things. But please know that we're also going to talk about other improvements that may need to be done to the facility to make it eligible for these costs. Other improvements that we will assist financially in making. But just please be aware that when you come to us and ask for a roof, and then I start talking about extra hallway lights, don't be confused. But just all because HUD has minimum level of the structure to receive its funding, and this also comes with the caveat that we'll put a use restriction on that building for 3 to 10 years, depending on the level of investment. So there's another little caveat, but just wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. ESG here, okay, emergency shelter operations. So another category under the emergency shelter is operations, and here are all the budget items, the items that we will pay for: maintenance, shelter, rent, security services, fuel, equipment, insurance, utilities, food for clients, furnishings, beds, tables, etc. Maybe there's other furnishings to help with distancing and other kind of safety, health safety things during this whole crisis. Other supplies and possibly hotel, motel vouchers, depending on if that's something that you have some emergency cases come in and need somewhere to place these folks and you are at capacity or not able to get them in your shelter for some reason or the other. Okay, that was a big category with lots of things. Has anybody got any questions out there for that emergency shelter area? I don't see any on the chat, and no one has unmuted themselves, so we can move on to the next category. Let's see here. So this is the, I'm sorry, I missed it. Is it rapid rehousing? Okay, so homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing. These are more of our standard programs that you guys are used to us seeing either through this most recent NOFA or in the past of us funding. So financial assistance, looks like rental application fees, security deposits, last month's rents, utility deposits and payments, moving costs, storage fees, with the caveat of make sure that we're doing our due diligence to not duplicate any benefits, but this is kind of a standard category for us. Homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing, housing search and placement costs, yes, we fund these. Assessment of housing needs, plan for locating housing, housing search, outreach and negotiation with owners. I want to add real quick as well to everybody on the line here that we do have a new, HUD issued a new CPD notice. It's CPD-20-08, and it came out just a few days ago. And I have not got all the way through it, but we will, and we'll provide maybe some extra what we learned from this, because it appears maybe they do have some other item. HUD is offering some more waivers and some other kind of special things that we wouldn't normally be offering for a rapid rehousing or homelessness prevention. But we'll get through this and get some guidance out to you folks here yet this week. What have we missed here? Tenant counseling, making moving arrangements. These are all eligible costs that can be built into a program. Housing stability case management, coordinating systems, initial evaluation and reevaluations, counseling, developing housing plans. These are all this housing stability case management are all eligible. Let's see here. Legal services, mediation and legal costs. You could build these costs into your program if you need them. Let's see. Homelessness prevention and rapid credit repair. Okay. So these folks you can assist with budgeting, managing money, assessing credit scores, and resolving credit problems. Looks like we cannot pay credit card debt or collection accounts. That's in red, so it must be important. But yeah, build into your program some funding for some credit repair to assist the folks that you're helping. ESG, let's see, homeless prevention and rapid short and medium-term rental assistance. So here's the standard definitions. These aren't different than any other funding round that we put out. Let's see here. Again, ESG cannot be used for renovate buildings for affordable housing. So that's just a little note there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so that section was a little shorter than the other ones because you folks probably have a lot more experience with homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing, because those follow very closely to the normal rules and regulations that we operate under. And normally we just didn't add a whole lot more slides to that section. Any questions from that section there? I hope we got some new chats here. What do we got here? So we think that it's a great question, Sheila. So yes, your facility, your operations, maybe stressed. What's that? Just neighbors. Sorry. Maybe stressed, financially or lots of other ways because of the current pandemic. We don't think it's that much of a stretch to to request funding through this CARES Act funding for shelter improvements, and that be a response to the current pandemic. Either we're, by placing a new roof, let's say, on a shelter, we are extending the usable life of that facility, which we think is a great response. Or there are lots of different ways, but trust me, shelter improvements, we feel, is a way that's helping address the community's preparedness for this pandemic and possibly pandemics in the future. Let's hope not, though. Let's see, so eligible uses, HMIS. So I'm not 100% familiar with HMIS, but my understanding is that entities should have free access to HMIS through IHCDA, but maybe in this case we're talking more about hardware and equipment. You know, if your entity is lacking in proper equipment to operate HMIS, or there's funding here for the hardware and equipment and software costs to make sure that you guys can properly operate HMIS to the capacity that it needs. You know, if you only have one station for HMIS, but your operation really needs two, okay, well, here's an opportunity to submit a request to purchase all the items that are needed for that second HMIS account, second HMIS workstation, so that everyone has adequate access to HMIS. Here's staffing costs associated with all the HMIS entry, training and overhead costs. You know, if not that we're traveling anywhere from HMIS, but if there was a HUD sponsored or one of these TDA consultants are doing an HMIS training, and that your staff has been talking about, it's an online training, just couldn't afford to do it. You know, here's an opportunity. Whether that exists or not, I don't know, but if you find a training venue for HMIS training, here's a way to request funding for that HMIS training. Are there any questions about the HMIS portion of this? Let's see, no new chats, okay. All right, and lots of funding opportunities here. Okay, administration. So, even I've got the word that we will entertain. Everybody get their pens out here. We will entertain a request for administration funding up to and not to exceed 5% of your funding request. And so 5% of your funding request is what we will entertain for an admin request. Normally HUD doesn't allow for as much admin for ESG, and we spend that here trying to get NOFAs ready, to get reporting done, to get all the stuff that we have to do on our end to make ESG work. But in this case, there's extra admin money, and we are passing along the opportunity for you to request 5%. Now, admin isn't case management. Admin isn't staff who is directly involved in clients or directly involved in executing your plan. You know, admin's more of that stuff, that reporting, the preparing claims, that, let's see, what a program coordination, monitoring of your program, administration services. Let's see here. You folks all have a really good grasp on admin, the difference between admin and direct costs. Admin, up to 5% of your requests we'll entertain. So that'll be when you prepare that budget, it'll be, you know, shelter essential services, and you got all your costs, and then put a line item in there for admin, and that's where you'll go ahead and reflect that. It's not a category in itself. It's just within your budget. But it's a separate line item within the budget, obviously. I'm sorry for that clarity there. Go ahead, next slide, please. Ineligible uses. Now, there are a lot fewer slides for ineligible uses. There's only one here as compared to all the eligible ones we gave you guys. Can't buy new property. We can't do new construction. We can't add on to onto a shelter, but we'll help rehab a shelter. We can't build a new shelter, but we'll help you convert an existing building into a shelter. No rehab of structures for, let's see here. So here they are. There aren't many of them, but those are ineligible expenses. Next slide, please. So yes, the ESG COVID money is special, and we'll hit a few highlights here that you guys are going to think is really important, and so do we. Looks like the CARES Act did increase the income limit for folks who could be assisted with ESG. Used to be 30 for regular ESG funds. For the CARES Act funding, this ESG CV funding, it's 50%. So we probably on our website probably have those income levels on a chart or somewhere, but it's in the application. Thank you, Camille. So in the application, you'll see what those income levels are. There's no cap for shelter and street outreach. So again, that's why we're definitely hoping that somebody puts together a street outreach application. Here's the big one on this slide. It used to be that with ESG funds, so our normal ESG funds is a dollar per dollar match. If you come to us asking for $20,000, we need to see $20,000 of your funding or other types of funding to account for match. The ESG CARES Act has no match requirements. Let me state that again, no match requirement. So when we're reviewing applications, in normal times, we're looking really close at how much skin in the game or how much other resources you guys are bringing to these programs. These aren't normal times, so we're not as heavily looking at that, or if at all. So if you've got a program that you're missing other funding sources for it, but you've got a great program that you want to run, no match requirements. All right, next slide, please. So this may be a little tough, and this is going to be, send us an email. If your firm, your entity has undertaken activities, undertaken other things in response to the current health crisis, and you've undertaken these costs, incurred all these costs retroactively back to, it's either going to be January 21st or March 13th. I think this new CPD notice I have here says January 21st of 2020. We'll provide a clarification for that. I think it says it in here. But so if you've spent funds in this, what is this? Prevent, prepare for, or respond to, we will entertain reimbursing those costs as part of a program. So if this is the case, you need to get a hold of us. Send to ohns@cityoffortwayne.com. Send us your story. Let us know what those costs were, what they were, what they're for. We still expect high levels of accountability as far as backup and all that stuff, but we will talk to you about what we can do to assist in paying for costs that you've already incurred and paid for. Next slide, please. Aha, okay, and we're going additional information. We have a newly adopted program manual. I think it's newly adopted being 12 to 18 months ago, but it's out on our website. We recommend that all of our partners go out and get a copy of this, read it, highlight it, and run your programs, your ESG programs according to this. It's called the Rapid Rehousing and Homelessness Prevention Program, but it has caveats for all ESG funding. So don't think that just because you have an emergency shelter or street outreach program that this manual isn't applicable to you. It is. Go out and get it, read it, enjoy it. What do we got? Okay. A word about faith-based organizations. You know that we fund faith-based organizations. Lots of times, just that caveat of clientele isn't required to profess to a particular faith or participate in those services, but we fund religious entities all the time through this here. Monitoring. So just like everyone else, the folks that we fund through this special funding will still be, we're still be part of our monitoring plan. So we'll keep an eye on your progress. You submit an application, we're going to read through it, and once we get all the awards set up and deadlines and all this stuff, we'll follow your progress to make sure that you guys did what you said you were going to do in the time frame that you said you were going to do it. And it's all part of monitoring, either desktop or in your office, maybe at some point in the future, not anytime soon, but you'll still held to the same standards. Here's our website with lots of resources that we have out there. The Public Services and ESG subrecipient page, it's got lots of documents you need. Our consolidated plan is out there. We're running out of time for this consolidated plan, and we'll be working on the new one soon, but there's the link to that one if you want to go out and read it. Our action plan is out there, and our AI, analysis of impediments to fair housing, also exists, and we try to promote that document whenever we can. Whilst here's necessary documents for an application, we need that certificate of good standing. We need you to fill out that annual audit form. We need to see, outreach materials and grievance policy stuff, SAM registration. We definitely are interested in seeing that and Board of Directors resolution that they support the submittal of this funding application. And I think we've got a short form out there. If your board isn't meeting between now and the end of the month, there's a short form out there that the board president signs. It's short of a full board meeting, so that you still can submit, and it acknowledges that your board members have some support of your submittal. Okay, let's open the lines back up for any questions. There's a lot here, and feel free to shoot any questions off that you have. This wasn't mandatory, so when you guys are out talking with your other friends in the nonprofit world, let them know about how much funding we have and how we're funding lots and lots and lots of different activities that we don't normally fund to help the community respond and help the community in its efforts to assist our homeless populations. Any questions out there? Okay. What's the next slide, Camille? Thank you. Again, you guys have got our contact information. Any questions you have, please submit a question. Again, we'll put together that FAQ so everyone's got it. Please, I was going to say, reach out to us. Yeah, if you have any costs that you've already incurred that you want to build in to be reimbursed for into a program, please contact us so we know what you're talking about and can give you some guidance. Please pass along this NOFA to any and all agencies. Please spread the word. We want to get this opportunity into as many hands as possible. No minimum, no maximum funding requests. We'll entertain any of those. We have a deadline of the 30th at 5 p.m. and we want as many applications as possible. So we're hoping that we can get more folks to know about this funding opportunity. So please tell all your friends, okay? You guys do that for me? All right. This is recorded and will be on the website, so even if folks miss this and you talk to them later and they say, oh, darn it, I missed it, but I'm interested in this, this will be out on the website. You tell them to no fear, go listen to this and submit an application. Thanks, guys. Have a great day and a great week, and we look forward to your questions and your applications.